Hi friends, this is Shekhar Srinivasan, Managing Director, LS Solutions Private Limited, CEO, LookTV.net, a .NET trainer and an architect. In this video, we will try to understand what are the new features that are introduced with Visual Studio .NET 2013. Once Visual Studio 2013 preview has got installed, when we open Visual Studio .NET for the very first time, it will prompt with a sign in dialog. Once we click on sign in, a login dialog will be displayed where we can provide the user credentials of any user account which is registered with Microsoft, maybe Hotmail or maybe MSN or any IDs which are registered with Microsoft. The advantage of this particular thing is, once we log on to our Visual Studio .NET using the credentials, anytime we try to log on in any system with the same credentials, we will be getting the same environment and the settings that are being configured. This is one of the best features which I just observed it when compared with the previous, because once we log on to the Visual Studio .NET, maintaining the same settings in any system is really good. The advantage what we will get is, instead of changing the settings and environment again and again in various systems, we can just set once. In any system, if you wanted to use it, we will use the same settings. Once we logged on to the Visual Studio .NET, it will prompt with a dialog box for selecting the theme. We have been introduced with three themes. One is blue, the other one is dark, the other one is light. We can select the theme and the settings and we can launch our Visual Studio .NET. Now let's try to launch Visual Studio .NET and understand what are all the new features that are introduced in Visual Studio 2013. Let's start the demo. Once I open Visual Studio .NET, in order to create a new application, I click on New Project. I select C# Web. Once I selected C# Web, I find ASP.NET Web Application Portable Class Library. If we just try to observe the previous versions, we used to find a whole lot of templates like ASP.NET Empty Website, ASP.NET Web Application, ASP.NET MVC3 application, MVC4 application, lots of confusion. But in this, we find ASP.NET Web Application which provides an option for one ASP.NET, where one ASP.NET means a unified dialog scaffolding for everyone, which means that we will be having the scaffolding not only for MVC, but for web forms. We will also have the scaffolding for Web API together. It's a new extensible identity system, an open web interface for .NET. If you wanted to check out the previous versions, we can select Visual Studio 2012. The whole lot of templates what we used to see earlier, you will find the same. Now let me select the web. Let me click on ASP.NET Web Application. I try to give my first app. I just click on OK. Once I clicked on OK, I find a dialog window where we can select the things. I find different types of templates available. When I selected a template with a name called as Web Forms, I see a Web Forms that got selected. When I select MVC, I find MVC got selected, Web API, MVC as well as Web API got selected, Facebook, MVC plus Web API got selected, mobile as well as single page applications, MVC and Web API got selected. It's a unified dialog for working with any applications. Let me select web forms and let me try to add MVC and also Web API. Now the advantage what you will get is within a single application, now you will have the references as well as the folder structures which will be there for web forms, MVC as well as Web API. And also a support for unit testing has been provided for web forms. In case if you wanted to configure the security authentications, we can just click on configure authentication and we can just configure it with the individual accounts. Now let me just try to click on create to create a project. So this is going to add the references that are required for web forms, MVC as well as Web API. Let the project gets created. Once the project got created, we can see our solution explorer with a whole lot of folders and the structure. Let us try to first understand some of the things which is present within the solution explorer. I find a sitemap files or the site master files where it's a master page that is available. Along with the site master page, I have a mobile version also. And in order to switch between the normal website as well as mobile, we have a view switcher. Now first let me try to execute this and let us try to find out is there any differences that we find in our UI. Once I executed my application, I am able to see a web form loaded with a structure similar to that of Bootstrap. So by default, the web application that you are going to develop is going to take the support of Bootstrap, and the pages are going to be responsive. Since we just observed, now we have two things. One is a site master for the web application and also site master for the mobile application. Now let me just try to reduce the size of this. I can see a significantly difference between my previous web form and the look and feel. So this page is going to be a responsive form, and you can just try to observe it. The menu has been changed, which will be comfortable for the mobile. And when it is the size of a system, we can observe it, it's like a regular website. Now let us try to first understand how the pages or any enhancements has been done on the designing part of our Visual Studio.NET. To do this, let me try to add a web form. I'm just adding a web form. Once I just added a web form, just adding a simple Web Essentials plugin, now the power of your Visual Studio 2013 increases like anything. Now say for example, let me just try to use some particular code. I just typed in some statement, automatically I get a div ID with a header. Now let us try to check out how we can able to use this thing. I type in something like div hash header dot sum dot classes plus an unordered list, a greater than symbol, li. So once I just specified, it has prepared me a div tag with the id header and a class called as sum classes with an unordered list with a list item. Now let us try to further explore some of the things what we can do here. I take an unordered list where I try to provide an ID called as li, nav, a list items. and I wanted to have 5 list items. Once I just try to specify this, automatically the UI has rendered an unordered list with 5 items. Likewise, we can just try to handle this thing. Let me just try to have a data list. In this way, the user can able to design the forms in a very simple manner. For example, I wanted to have an unordered list with some kind of list items where I wanted to have the ID for the list items should start from item highest numbers. Within that, I need an anchor tag. Let me just try to specify this and let me try to execute this. We can just try to observe it automatically. It has prepared some items and also the IDs has been generated with a hyperlinks. Now, in the same fashion, we can able to design even a complex design also. Let me try to place something called as a div tag. Within that, let me say an item dollar. I try to put a dollar and I say a content of 6. I automatically got or generated div tags 6 times with some particular specific class. Now, not only this thing, whenever we used to provide some kind of design templates and all, there is a very popular site called as lipsum.com. We used to get the code from there. But now I can just try to generate that by typing a simple code. Let me just try to do it once again. Automatically the dummy data what you wanted to provide for the UI, you can easily get it. Now let me just try to provide. So once I done with this particular thing, I check it out that the lorem text or the dummy text has been repeated for 10 times. Now let us assume that I just wanted to execute this page to check out how the page looks like. Once I executed this particular page, it opens our browser and shows our content what we have designed. Now, whenever we wanted to observe it, I already mentioned that our Visual Studio.NET now is going to support the Bootstrap. Let me just try to expand the content. I try to take the Bootstrap responsive CSS and I just wanted to reflect that particular output. There is a new enhancement that has been provided called as browser link. So there is an automated browser connectivity that has been integrated with your Visual Studio.NET. I can just simply click on this particular browser link. Let me just open the browser. Let me just keep it here and let me just click on this. So we can see that once I click on this, automatically this is getting refreshed. Now let me just try to do some changes and let's see whether this content is going to change or not. So let me just try to remove all this dummy data. Now let me just try to generate some div tag with some spannings and all. Since I said it is going to use a Bootstrap, by default Bootstrap takes a span of 12 for the grid layout. So I'm trying to use a div with a span 3. I just wanted to have 4 where I wanted to generate a dummy text for this thing. So I can just observe it. I have a div class with span 3 and 4 has been generated with some particular dummy information. Now I just wanted to see that whether this browser is going to get reflected when I try to execute this or not. So to do this, let me just click on the browser link. Now we can see that this thing has been automatically reflected. In that way, we can just try to handle many things. In case if I have a complex design with some kind of headings and everything has to be provided, then we can even do that particular thing by writing that. For example, I just wanted to have a div with a header. Within that, I wanted to have a div with an ID called as page. Within that, assume that I wanted to have a div with an ID called as wrap. Within that, assume I wanted to have a div with a ID wrap inner. Within that, assume that I wanted to have a div which is going to have a class called as span 3, and I just wanted to have some dummy text. Sorry. Okay, so I just forgot to press the 3. So let me just try to retype in the text once again what I just typed in so that it avoids the confusion. I wanted to have a div with the ID header. Again, I need a div with an ID page. I said I want to have a div with wrap div with an ID called as wrap inner, which should have a div with a span class 4. 3 times I need to generate the div with some dummy text. So you can just try to observe it automatically. I got a div with a header, and I have a div with the ID page, wrap inner, and a span 4. These are all some kind of enhancements that has been added on your design part. Now let's try to understand, is there anything newly provided for us at the time of coding? For understanding this particular thing, let me just try to prepare a simple model. I just try to right click on the model and I click on add new item. Let me select a class. So I select the class, say that the name of the class I provide as department. Now let us try to prepare this particular class definition. Now I just see some new thing that has been discovered here. There is something like 0 references. Let me try to come back to that particular thing shortly. But now let me add some kind of properties for this. I say property, I need an ID. I would like to have a department number. I would like to have a department name. I would like to have a location. On the top of every item, I see something called as references. This particular thing we call with a name called as code lens. Let me come back to the code lens shortly. Now I don't want to display this particular ID for the other users. And let me just clean up these things. I don't want to use all the unwanted things. So I remove all the unused using statements. I like to keep system always, so I keep using system. I wanted to avoid displaying this ID. So we have something called as an attribute with the name called as scaffold column, which is available under system.componentModel.data annotations. I add that particular reference and I say, when you try to scaffold this particular thing, you should not display the ID. So I just added a simple model. Now once this particular model has been defined, I already mentioned that we have a support called as ASP.NET 1, or one ASP.NET is nothing but a unified dialog scaffolding for everything.
Like how we used to have scaffolding for MVC, the same way now for the web forms also there is a support given for scaffolding. Now let me just try to move on to my controllers. I right click on the controllers and then let me try to add a scaffold, and before that let me just try to build a solution so that this model is available. Once I build the solution, I right click on my controllers, add scaffold. You have various supports for MVC, and we have support for the web API, and but my requirement is for web forms. So I selected web form pages with read write actions. I just click on add. The model class which I wanted to use is department. There is no data context class available, so let me add a new data context. I also wanted to have a mobile version, so I just generated. I click on add. It prompts me to provide the data context to be created. I just click on OK. Once I clicked on OK, I try to find a simple difference, that is, I will be getting a new folder that gets added with all the views that are required. Here the views are going to be my web forms. So you can just try to observe now. I got a folder with the name called as department, in which I have default.axpx pages and the default.mobile.axpx. Means if you just try to observe for each and every page, we have the mobile version as well as normal version. Let me just try to open the default page, the code behind, and let us try to check out. Here also I just try to find something called as a references that are available. Now one of the options that has been newly introduced for us is an option called as peak definition. In the previous versions of Visual Studio.NET, we used to check the definition with the support of go-to definition. Whenever we use go-to definition, then it will try to open a new window in which the definition will be given. Now what we can do is, we have an option provided called as peak definition. In order to invoke that, I have to simply press Alt and F12. So now you can just try to observe it. The definition of this department, you can just pick it at this place itself. And you have a support for picking to the inner level also. Means say for example, what is the definition that is there for scaffold column? I do the same thing, Alt and I press F12. I can just observe it, the definition of the scaffolding. Now in case if I wanted to go backward as well as forward, I can use something called as Control Alt minus to the backward and Control Alt plus to the forward. So we can just try to navigate within this. This is one useful feature that has been provided for us whenever a programmer wants to know the definition of anything, they can immediately pick it without moving for the other forms. Now once I just have this, let me just try to put a debug option. And let me just try to make this page as a startup page, and let's execute so that we try to understand is there any other new feature that is available. Now once I try to execute this particular thing, then I find a new option called as code map. Let me just try to click on the code map. Once I just click on the code map, I find something called as external code and I have something called as page load. So what is this particular code map is? This is going to be a visual debugging or you can call it as a visual call start. Let me just try to check out what exactly happens. Once I navigated, now you can see that now I am in the page load of the master page, site.master.cs. So once it is executing the default page load, it is going for the site page load, and we can just try to understand it visually. From there, it is trying to come back to the get data method which is present within the default. And once I have it, the definition goes. So I am just trying to navigate within this. So we got the things. So you can just try to observe it from where to where, how the navigation is going on, the complete stack trace. Now we can just visualize it with the support of an option given called as code map. This is again a useful feature which our Visual Studio 2013 is providing. Let us try to check out. So once I try to execute this, we can see that a complete UI has been designed for us for interacting with a table called as department. Now if I wanted to add a new department, I click on create new. Already a web form has been provided called as insert, and if you just try to observe the URLs are not having any extension called as .axpx. We see a neat URL with the name called as department/insert. If I just try to check out the Solution Explorer, I find a file with a name called as insert.axpx. But when I try to check out the Visual Studio.net, I have the extensions, but in the URL we don't have it. This is because of a nature called as friendly URLs. Whatever might be the pages that we are going to have here, we have a support for the friendly URLs. So a tag prefix for the friendly URLs has been provided. In the previous version, if you wanted to use the friendly URLs, you need to get it as a NuGet package. Now let me just try to add a record, some department. I provide a sales header. I click on insert and the record gets added for us. The same thing applicable for the edit as well as delete. Now let's try to explore the other features that are available for us. Now once we have this thing, one more interesting feature that has been provided by your ID is, let me just try to add a simple item. Let me try to go for a text file. Let me just try to define some simple information like string s. You can see that automatically there is a closing thanks that are been given. So we have a feature that is introduced called as auto brace completion. So anytime I try to open something, automatically we can see that you get a closing. You can just try to observe it. Whatever the things I'm going to open, automatically you have a support of closing. And in case if I have a requirement for moving the code lines up and down, then also we have a support for doing this. In order to move the code lines up and down, I can use Alt and up arrow key to move up as well as down. Anytime I just wanted to do it. It's a simple thing, but very useful while writing the program. And along with this, I also find a smiley which is available for sending the feedbacks, and you have a notifications that are there. So anytime you get any notifications, We can just try to check out. If you want to send your feedbacks for Microsoft, we have an option provided for us. These are all some of the new features which we can find it in our Visual Studio .NET 2013. Hope you have a clear idea on the environment of Visual Studio .NET and some of the new enhancements that are introduced for us. And in case if you wanted to contact me, you can contact to the mail IDs, or else you can add to my Facebook with the IDs that are scrolling on this video. Any doubts, any clarifications you want, you can contact me. I hope you have enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed in preparing this. Happy programming.